When you don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to What the Fox podcast. This is Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross, and today we are going to kick off with a fun discussion that people don't really like to have.
Imagine
I
that.
say fun, right? Because it's us, and I think we will have fun talking about this. We're going to go down memory lane a little bit today, because ultimately what we were talking about prior to pressing record today was about comparison, and essentially how comparison and how we often live our lives by comparing ourselves to others, and how it's about standing out but also wanting to be like the person next to you. Like there's a competition element going on.
Always and forever, my friend.
Yeah, it's like you want to fit in but stand out, fit in but stand out. There's just such a paradox going on.
Well, and it's, we always come back to this. Society has trained us to believe that we need to both fit in and stand out simultaneously, which is, friend, physically impossible because
Kind
we're
of
all
like
unique
perfectionism.
humans. Oh yeah, that word. Oh, it came in early this episode.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, because I definitely think they coincide. But yeah, today we were wanting to talk about, especially with it being February. I mean, when you think about Valentine's Day, or at least when I think about Valentine's Day, I feel like there is so much pressure put on people in terms of like what that day or that week or the weekend is supposed to look like, what we expect of our spouse or our family.
Yeah.
And then when you have our curated social media accounts and everyone posting everything that they received, there's just a lot of comparison going on. It feels very competitive. It also feels really depressing for those of us who don't play with the reindeer games, like don't get invited into that like, it's like, what the hell is this? I mean, so again, with like the comparison and competition, I think it's very real. But with that also comes other emotions like envy and jealousy. And this is actually,
can we talk for a minute about how often we throw like, I'm so jealous, like it's a good thing? Like, I can't tell you. And it comes to my mind too. I'm not throwing stones. This happens more often than I'd like to admit, but someone will say, oh, I did XYZ this weekend. And I'll say out loud, oh, I'm so jealous that you had that opportunity, or jealous that you got to do that. And I typically mean it good-heartedly. I'm not wishing any ill will on anyone, or I'm not mad that I didn't actually do whatever they did, but it's not actually jealousy I'm feeling, right? So, Lindsey, you've corrected me more than once that it's envy. Yeah.
It's envy.
But that doesn't feel good.
Right. But let's talk about that. It doesn't feel good because society says envy is one of the 7 deadly sins. We're not supposed to feel that way. And so if we can kind of just like laugh it off and kind of like, oh, I'm so jealous of you. That's so cute. Or you had so much fun. What we're actually saying is I am envious.
Yes.
I envy your experience or whatever's going on, which kind of brought Amber and I to this space.
Okay, it goes full circle.
Let me just preface about, we want to talk about how we met. Amber and I want to talk about how we met because it's kind of important for our audience to understand, like, we haven't always had this friendship. We haven't always like connected in the way that we do now.
That's a very mild way to put it, Lindsey.
Okay. Why don't you shoot the shit and get it straight then?
I will do so. Thank you very much. So the audience already has heard we met in high school. We met through my now husband, Eric. And initially, Lindsey, when I met you, I was jealous. I was very uncomfortable. I was all of a sudden meeting this like blonde bombshell who's tall and just vibrates such a good energy and like all of this sunshine, who is best friends with my now boyfriend. And I was like stunned. And it was one of those moments because at that point in my life, I was incredibly insecure. I was incredibly uncomfortable in my skin. I was dealing with emotional trauma in my head that I hadn't shared with anyone. I was like, I had my own personal battles in my heart and in my mind and in my world. And I saw you as an imminent threat that I was like, oh my gosh, I finally met this great guy. He's got this great friend. And there's no way that like the three of us can coincide.
Like, who's this bitch? And I said, that's me. That's me. I'm that bitch. And I plan to stay his friend for all intents and purposes. So, Eric, what's going on with this girl over here?
Yeah, like, hey, boo, what's her problem? Why is she so?
So I actually met her husband when I was in sixth grade, I'm pretty sure. He was like my first friend when I moved to where I moved in North Carolina at the time. And so we had been long-standing friends for like a while. And then
for reference,
Amber,
I met Eric in senior year of high school. So yes, I did come in and break up a long-standing friendship because of my own insecurities and issues. I am not proud of this. I am very grateful that Lindsey allowed me back in her life after the way I acted as a
well, I wasn't ever actually in your life. I mean, that was the whole thing. I was never invited to be in your life. And so Amber and I actually never got to know one another because frankly, there was just like that low vibration energy around us of like, no, you can't enter this space. And so it is true. Eric and I just kind of had like, it was never a falling out. There's never bad blood. It was just like, okay, I see what's going on here and I'm gonna let you do you, boo.
I'm going to take a step back because she seems a little crazy. Like, I get it. It's fine. But I would also like to call in the fact that I think sometimes the universe allows situations like that because they're necessary for growth. Like, had you and I attempted to become friends in high school, we wouldn't have. There would have
just
been
to be clear,
way.
We wouldn't have. We had nothing in common.
Nothing in common, no shared experiences.
Except for Eric.
Yeah. Well, and except for like our own individual trauma storms in our heads, right? Like,
sure. Yeah.
We were both working through things, our own shit.
Absolutely.
Right? Like every other teenager is in the world. But I do think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, high school is in of itself is hard because we're going through a lot of our own, it's a, peak time for identity development. We're figuring out what our morals are, what our values are, where we place meaning in our life, and what kind of people we want to connect to. But again, when we think about comparing and like the art of comparison, but then you mix it in with competition, you're just trying to figure out your way in the world. And I think, there is something I want to just take a quick moment to sort of like define. When we think about envy versus jealousy, I love the way that this is articulated in Brene Brown's new book, but she she says envy occurs when we want something that another person has. And jealousy is when we fear losing a relationship or a valued part of a relationship that we already have.
Mm-hmm.
So when we reflect on kind of like how we met, when Amber, casually now, at least today, right after we've gone through our own growth process, when you talk about jealousy, it's really, there was a perceived threat of like, I'm going to lose this amazing person in my life. With this relationship that I've already got established, now this is a threat. So let me, mitigate the risk.
Yeah. And I think in my head, you are not developed as a teenager, right? Your brain is not fully functional.
Yeah.
You're trying to sort all the emotions out. You're trying to do all the things. So in my mind, I can remember thinking, there's no way that Lindsey and Eric can just be friends and can only be friends and for my position in his life to not be threatened. And for me, that meant, okay, well, like not actively saying, Eric, you can't hang out with Lindsey, but making it really uncomfortable for like that relationship to exist. And I'm not like, I'm in no way, shape or form saying like that was the right way to act or that like I'm dismissing that at all because Lindsey and I've made amends. But the premise still stands that we do these things in daily life all the time.
Yeah, not
as
just
adults,
high school.
Not just high school. Friends, we're still dealing with it.
That's right. And well, a big part of that is the fact that social the social comparison aspect, it falls to the wayside in terms of
Mm,
our sense of awareness. I don't actually think there's many people that have an active sense of awareness of when they are comparing themselves. Um, you know, yes, we look at social media. That's a very, in your face example of when we are constantly comparing ourselves. But are we
sure.
like, do we have the conscious awareness that that's what we're doing? And that's why we might be feeling some kind of a way after we, do the thing.
Right.
Um, and so ultimately, I think it's just, I think it is important in this conversation to just highlight the fact that these social comparisons can do harm to ourselves and others.
Yes. And if
And
we don't take notice of that and we don't like catalog that feeling, I always talk
Mhm.
with people about take a moment to analyze how you feel after an activity or after an interaction or after, scrolling on social media.
Oh yeah.
If you're feeling drained, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling envious or jealous, like
Hmm.
that's something to dig into and do some hard work on what's going on in your brain and your heart so that you don't cause yourself or other people damage. And so often we just go through the motions and we're like, oh, it's normal to be jealous. Like, that's fine. It's socially acceptable. No big deal. Nothing to work on here. And I think there's definitely stuff to work on there.
Yeah, sure. And just like with everything, a little bit is one thing, right? A little bit of
Mm,
jealousy can inspire some motivation, but a lot of it is not so great. I mean,
no.
so I think going back to what you're talking about is like this element of mindfulness is really important. And so what I'm hearing you say really, and this is what we focus on a lot in cognitive behavioral therapy, is just taking notice of when there is a mood shift that we're
Mm,
experiencing, and we notice like all of a sudden we're going from like cool, calm, and collected to all of a sudden we're feeling that pang of like jealousy or sadness or anger, whatever it is. It's very important to increase your sense of self-awareness around those mood shifts by taking pause and kind of asking yourself like, what just happened, why did this
right.
just happen, like how did this just happen, and also just saying like, okay, wait, I need to label this, like I need to label this thought, label this emotion, what just went down here, because it forces us to explore what our values are, and it
Mm,
forces us to explore if our actions and our values are aligned or not.
yeah, that's true. It is. When it's the pace that we live in today's day and age doesn't often allow us to take that time. And I know until I was probably late 20s, maybe early 30s. So it's very recent, y'all. I didn't know how to take that time. I didn't know, like, if you asked me what I was feeling on any given day throughout my life, like, there are very few of them that I can tell you strong emotions. There are very few of them that I can tell you I took a moment to take in my surroundings because most of my life I've spent just going through the paces, trying to keep up with what was expected of me,
Mhm.
trying to do the things that needed to be done, and not really taking any time to acknowledge or even be aware of how the things around me were impacting me or making me feel. So, I mean, that is a skill and something that needs to be taught early in life.
I agree. I agree. And actually, I will say I have noticed that various school systems across the country have upped their ante whenever it comes to SEL, social emotional learning in the
Mm,
school systems. Like you do see more schools that are starting to teach like mindfulness, for example, which I have been really impressed by because I definitely think it's long overdue at this stage, but
sure.
it does help us tune into things because the reality is that when we are comparing ourselves to others, that also affects like our sense of self-concept and like and how we view the world, how we
Yep.
view ourselves, our the expectations that we put out there into the world, of ourselves and others, and it can really just influence whether it be our past and how we view our past or our current situation.
Sure.
But even worse, it can affect like how we're viewing our future. So we can kind of like manifest whatever it is that we're telling ourselves is going to happen. So you definitely want to check in on those mood shifts, because if you're not, and you're thinking like you've got some low vibrating energy going on, well, shit, that's what your future is going to look like. And so
Yeah.
fortunately, and this is the beautiful part, is that we have a choice.
Imagine that. We get a choice.
We have a choice. I love options.
I do. It's so funny. That is something that I tell Eric all the time. I adore options. I very much dislike being painted into a corner of no options and just having to do something because it has to be done. Give me two options and you just make my day.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just it. As human beings and even little kiddos, we all
Yes.
like to have a sense of decision making and control. So when there's options, it enhances our perception of decision making and control. So, who knew?
Who knew? And I want to circle back to one thing that you said earlier, just because like a parent's perspective.
Go for it. There's no script in
I'm
this.
yeah, never is, y'all. Seriously. Um I am excited that schools are starting to work this into their curriculum. However, I think that a large part of that responsibility needs to be in the parents' hands. I think that I have two children that are 3 and 5, and we talk a lot about emotions. We talk a lot about feelings. We talk a lot about identifying root cause of emotions. And they're basic level conversations at this point because my children are young. But my hope is that as they grow, they are emotionally able to handle life, because it is not
Yeah.
getting easier as time goes on.
Yeah.
And while I am grateful that schools are starting to work that into their curriculum, I want to encourage parents, grab a book, grab a podcast, watch a YouTube video, start talking to your kids about emotions and labeling and digging into
yeah.
this work now, not,
Yeah.
when they're 16.
No, it's true though. You're absolutely right. And I guess that's just it, is that, when we look at the generational gap, we don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah.
this is where, cycles continue, generational cycles among, where we're starting to repeat whatever our parents did, because maybe our parents didn't know any better, or they haven't done the work. And
Mhm.
I would actually say we're, you and I are very grateful in the sense that we've been able to choose,
Yes.
choose, and have the awareness to choose to do the work and to continue doing the work, so that we
Absolutely.
don't, so that we can break those cycles, and also ensure in future generations we're not having them repeat the cycle. So I think that's definitely, I think it does start in the home, and there's many homes, at least, I am an in-home therapist.
Yeah.
And so I being in the homes, you see that oftentimes, like, there's so many basic elements of, emotional attunement and regulation and
Mm.
predictability and consistency that are missing in homes, that do affect the way a child is brought up, significantly. I cannot overstate that point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's hard. Parenting is hard. Regulating emotions is hard. All of it is a challenge, but you get to choose your hard, right? Because at some point, rubber's going to meet the road and you're going to have to figure that crap out. So have the hard conversation now. Figure out what you need to do as far as working on your own stuff so that you can help your kids have different issues than what you have. This is my goal as a parent. Like, I know I'm not going to raise perfect humans. My goal is to raise humans that are kind, respectful, compassionate, empathetic, and have different issues than I have. Because there's always going to be problems and issues and
I
things
mean,
to
it's
be worked through.
true. It's true. Just
Yeah.
like when we were talking to Jay last week about, the parenting aspect of things. He's like, how
Yeah.
do you know when you've become like, how do you know whenever you've, been successful as a parent? And it's like, well,
You
you
don't.
don't. You just hope that you do
You
the
do your
best that you
best.
can.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and so, tying it back to the beginning of this, when we're talking about jealousy and envy and all
Yeah.
of that, it's just that, when we take time to get to know ourselves like that, just on a human
Mm.
level as adults, it can inspire a growth mindset. And that is kind of like the, we would talk about the bare bones basics of creating a new foundation for yourself to create a new life, and also to ensure that your children are not going to repeat your up shit, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of checking in with yourself and having some mindfulness around that. And
Well, and even if you don't have kids, right? Like your
yeah, I
vibration,
don't.
your energy, but the work is still relevant, and
Sure,
the
absolutely.
exercise is still relevant because you have the opportunity to change the energy of the world around you, right? Just
Mhm.
because, like, if we take our relationship, for example, we circle all the way back around. I impacted your life negatively because of my like internal struggles and inability to see you as like a partner or a friend
An
versus
ally.
an enemy, like an ally. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. I'm like, you see
I
this?
was perceived as an enemy, not an ally.
Yeah. And like I look back, and my goal in high school, my primary goal was to fly under the radar, to just like survive, to get through, and to move on to the next thing. And like anything perceived as a threat to that ability to do those things, I was just like, no, thank you. Like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna just shut this down and not go down that path. But as I have grown as a human, as I have done my own heart work, as I have figured out, like, the world is not necessarily against us. Our perception creates problems in the
Oh,
world
hell
around.
yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I 100%. Like one of my favorite sayings, I have no idea who said this, but I just have the visual in my mind is like the difference in perception in terms of what's the difference between a uh, a flower and a weed? It's perception.
Hmm.
And I love that because it's such a simple way to connect to the reality of how much perception does influence the way that we view the world.
So what you're saying is I thought I was pulling a weed out of my garden, and I actually pulled a beautiful flower out of it.
Depends on who you ask, Amber. Depends on who you ask.
This is my perception. So it now
But our
thankfully for
perception is
us,
our reality. I mean
yes.
that's just it, is that it does dictate how we choose to live our lives. And
Yes.
so if we want to be angry and kind of holding grudges and just being shitty, then that's our choice. That's our choice.
It's
But
not a
that,
good one. I don't recommend that one.
no, 0 stars. No, thank you.
0 stars. 10 out of 10 do not recommend. Now, lucky for us, thankfully for us, we about what a year or so ago at this point decided to reconnect. We actually end up, this is going to be amusing because we went on a hike. You remember our hike, me, you,
That's
and Eric.
that's right. It was the 3 of us,
And on this hike,
which is
you
actually so
mentioned-
funny. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's just hilarious to me for so many reasons. But on this hike, I will never, ever forget. You mentioned to me, like at the midway point, you said something about enjoying being around high vibration people.
Mhm.
And it struck me because so much of my life had been lived being that low vibration person and being among low frequency people,
Yeah.
that it was a moment where I actually stopped to take kind of an assessment of the people I was around and how I was acting around people. So
Oh,
that was
yeah.
like, it is one moment in my life where I can say definitively, I did stop to take that minute to say, wow, we've come a long way as people, as individuals, to now have a high frequency friendship. Now, at that point, we were just sort of feeling each other out,
Oh, yeah.
figuring
But
out if
you're
we could coexist.
sure. I mean, but I do think it's important to take inventory because
Yeah.
that's just it, is that the goal in life is to grow and to expand and to do better
Mm.
and to put, goodness out into the universe and hope that it returns back to you. The idea of karma. Well, I don't know if you believe in it or not, but I do. So I believe in
I
karma. So
believe-
just do a good job. Be nice, be kind.
I've told you once, I'll tell you again. My goal, do no harm. Like I want to be a good person. I want to be a contributing member of society. I want to raise children that do not grow up to be jerks. And I want to have fun along the way. So if that fits into karma, so be it. But I think if you dig down to enough of the spirituality of the different religions and thought processes, a lot of that is interconnected and just has different names. So
Oh, sure. Sure. But I do remember our hike, and it was It was nice just because I knew, and actually the way that we did start talking again, just in general, was through your health coaching.
Yeah, that's true.
That's actually how we did, because I was just sitting here thinking like, wait a minute, well, how did we connect
Like,
though
how did
before
this
the hike?
happen?
Yeah, and it was actually through your health coaching that I was like, I was taking notice of Amber on social media, like this girl is not the same girl that I remember. Like,
Well, you thought, let's be fair. You thought, okay, either she's faking it or she's a different person, right?
absolutely. Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, there's no bullshit there. I absolutely thought either she's faking it or she's really changed.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, let's see what this is all about. And so we actually did meet up. I wanted to get to know her with what she did with health coaching and the nutritional wellness stuff that she's into. And when we met at that time, it was clear as day to me that you were a different human being. Like it to
I
me,
appreciate that.
I mean, to me, I was like, you are not the same person that I met. Like you don't even look the same. Like you're not
Well,
even the
yeah.
same person.
No, yes, on all accounts, yes, and I'm grateful for that, and I will take that compliment because I prefer the Amber of today than the
Yeah.
Amber of high school age.
Right. I mean, we all change, but
Yeah.
hopefully we all grow. That's just it. And so
Amen.
you were
Yes.
someone that like as soon as I started talking to you, I was like, well, daggone, like you actually are the real deal. Like you are not the same person that I remember. And so it was actually really cool to go on a hike and to be with Eric and to be able to like shoot the shit. And
Yeah.
there's no animosity, no jealousy, no tension in the air. It was just very cool. And it was like, okay, that shows like that's a testament to the growth process, I think, between both of y'all and just as individuals as well. So it was just like really cool. And I knew that, probably we would be friends probably forever.
Yeah, I think you're stuck with me now. Like, I don't actually think that you have any chance out of this. So sorry, and you're welcome.
Well, I was gonna say thank you, but I guess we already covered that terrain.
Yes. I do think that coming back to kind of what we're talking about, right? Ultimately, our impact on society and the choice that we have in that. And
Mhm.
I want to make a motion to remove using I'm jealous as like a comedic relief, right? Because I think that creates, and you kind of alluded to this before, but it plants a seed in your heart and it plants a seed in your mind that now there's a divide between you and that other person. So even if it's said in jest, even if it's said like, Lindsey gets to do something really cool and I'm jealous of it, or like, I can think of one that I've said recently to you that I'm jealous of your incredible wardrobe, right? Like,
Oh my
well,
gosh. And yet I never leave the house, so I don't even get to wear the incredible wardrobe.
Dude, neither do I. So there's no reason for me to say something like that because I'm not.
You can just borrow it. Exactly.
I can just borrow it. Just hop a train, make it happen.
Make a flight or something. I'll mail it.
I don't want to get on a plane.
Okay, fine.
No, but seriously, like that, at the very minimum, I am going to make a commitment to myself to remove that from my vocabulary and to remove that as like a barrier, even in comedy or even if it seems innocent, because I do think that it causes a divide and it causes a rift and it opens up for that negative energy to come into your life.
And that's actually so interesting that you're saying this, because while it's true, there's also another thing that is true, and that's just the fact that jealousy is more socially acceptable.
That's true.
It's just more socially acceptable. Yet, I know I was saying this to you previously, while jealousy is more socially acceptable than like envy, it tends to have more dire consequences associated with it, in the sense of like, I know maybe not with the wardrobe aspect, but like if you think about the context of romantic relationships, right? When we go back to thinking about February and Valentine's Day and love and how things are supposed to look, I believe that jealousy can come with some dire consequences,
Mm.
particularly in the sense that research has shown that when there is jealousy, there tends to be more problem drinking involved, or there tends to be more interpersonal violence while drinking.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's been some correlations shown with that, and that was something that, again, tying back to Brene Brown's book, this is something that she actually mentions in there that I was really glad was highlighted because. Um, it jealousy is dangerous, frankly. It
Yeah.
can become very, very dangerous and escalated if you do not watch out for it. And obviously with it being February, we're going to be touching on different types of relationships, but
Yeah.
later this month we are going to be discussing um essentially we'll have a guest speaker on who will share her story about being in a domestic violence relationship. And frankly, a lot of that stuff does derive from this feeling of jealousy. And yet we are so quick in society to normalize
Mm.
jealousy as being acceptable. And we are
Well,
so
and it's
quick to,
even, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to
it's
interrupt.
okay. It's okay. I was just thinking like how in society we are so quick to normalize aspects of jealousy as it pertains to feeding trauma bonds,
Mm.
codependency, really kind of obsessively feeling attached and interconnected to that partner as a part of your identity. And, whether it be like partners having their location services turned on, or their,
Yeah.
I don't know, now they make like GPS rings, or, like
I'm
you
sorry.
can,
What?
like, yes, like same with like Apple Watches and stuff like that, or like the little tracking devices you can just slip in or whatever. Like, I just feel like these kind of behaviors, there's an element of jealousy while it's socially acceptable. It's almost like we're watching society normalize it in a way that is,
Super
I think,
unhealthy.
yes, very
Yeah.
unhealthy, but also like incredibly risky.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking I just saw this week that people were putting I think they're called air tags or something, like
Yes, that's the
on their
little,
children and sending their children to school with them. Like seemingly this is a safety thing. This is like this way I
mm,
know where my child is,
yeah.
this way, whatever. But I can see how that could become unhealthy. I can also see how it can be a healthy like security measure because
Hmm.
even so many years ago I traveled for work and I went from being a very sheltered individual who basically just drove to work and school and home for the majority of my life. And this is into adulthood, into marriage.
Hmm.
And I was in my 20s, took a sales position, and suddenly I was jet setting all over the US. And I was getting into Ubers and I was getting into Lyfts and I was getting into cabs. Never thought anything of it. I never had any GPS service attached to me. No, for all intents and purposes, nobody knew where I was while I was traveling for work. And I think as a parent, I'm like,
Hmm.
holy crap. Like, how stupid of an idea was this that nobody could have tracked me down? How useful would it have been if someone had, an air tag or if I had GPS service
Oh
on my
my
phone,
goodness.
which, like, so I go back through all of these things and I'm like, but then the scarcity mindset and that fear and that trauma, it all starts to creep back in. And I'm like, this is how it starts. This is how we go from what's a safe and like healthy boundary to taking
Hmm.
it to extremes and being very unhealthy and being untrusting and all of those that you're talking about.
Yeah, I was sitting here kind of laughing about the sales, the jet setting thing, because I used to work for an international travel company, and my ass would travel all over the world. I mean, I
Yeah.
traveled all over the world. I didn't have GPS on me. I didn't know. And I remember even when we were in high school, actually, when we were in high school, there was a school trip that went overseas. It was like I don't know, see like 6 to 8 different countries or something in Europe. And instead of a car, I wanted to invest in going on this trip. That's the company I later ended up got a job with to move to Boston to work for.
Oh,
So,
very cool. Okay. It all came full
but
circle.
oh yeah, it did. But I remember when we were actually in high school and I went on this trip, I kept separating myself from the group.
Of
And
course you did.
because I would meet like these strangers. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we've already
Of course
cut.
you did. Yeah, of course you did.
I do.
I'm
I
not
meet just
surprised.
random people. I have so much fun like meeting locals or like just, I don't know, you just meet the coolest people in random places. And I have been
No,
like
I'm
this my
sorry.
whole life.
You meet the coolest people in random places. The rest of us do not share this experience.
Well, I don't know if it's stupidity or joy. I don't know, but I have met so many neat people by just kind of, I don't know, bebopping around, just kind of seeing what happens next.
Well, and
It's
it's
worked.
amazing. Yeah, and it's worked so far. We're both safe. We're fine. Everything's
I mean,
fine.
there's been some hella risky situations I've got myself into as a result of some of these antics, but and probably when GPS location services probably would have been helpful, but
Yeah,
at the
we'll
end
probably
of
cover that in a later episode.
well, just, being overseas and stuff. I remember like when we were in high school, this was like shortly after, or maybe when the investigation was still going on. But do you remember the Natalie Hollowell or
Yes.
Holloway case? I can't remember
Yes.
her last name, but she had gone missing in an island. I think it might have been, I don't know if it was a school trip or what. I can't remember all the details, but I just remember my teacher would get so furious with me because there I was like 16, 17 years old, like, slipping into a random.
Meandering away. Can you imagine
I
being a teacher
mean,
having to keep up with you though? Like,
I did kind of feel bad for her, but the bars allowed 16-year-olds to go in, so why wouldn't I go in? Like, what the hell?
well, and this is where you got to be a 16-year-old and be, frivolous or not frivolous, but you got to have the adventure and it was the teacher's job to worry about it. And so, I mean,
Oh, well,
this is
yeah,
life.
because cognitively, I felt like I knew what I was doing and I was fully grown and I had my shit
Yes.
together, right? Because that's what we think when we're 16 and 17 years old. But, the truth is, our brain is not fully developed until we're 25. So,
Shocking. It, it
yeah.
it's amusing to me. So you bring that up. This is sort of a tangent, but I remember being 16 and looking at 25-year-olds thinking, wow, like they've got all their stuff together. They know what they're doing. They have a job. They do the things like I'm going to know what I'm doing when I'm 25. And then I got to 25 and I was like, hey,
How
where's the
funny.
adult? Like, who is the adult? Am I the adult? Am I the person in charge? Like,
Yeah, girl.
cue the terrified, like stunned deer in headlights because I did not need to be in charge.
We are all in charge of our own lives, but it's true. We grow up pretty darn fast, and it's important to just. Again, that's why I cannot emphasize the value in mindfulness and kind of like checking
Yes.
in with yourself, checking in with where you are, and ask yourself, am I where I want to be in life? Like, am I living the life that I want for myself? Or am I constantly holding grudges or feeling just jealous or hating on somebody or whatever it is, where it's just like, if you're a part of the problem, you gotta just
Choose to
stop.
fix it. Yeah. Stop being a jerk.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of a great rule in life. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah. Hey, I like it. That's just the tagline. Don't be an asshole. This is the goal in life. There you go.
It seems simple enough, but for whatever reason, it's a really hard rule to adhere to nowadays for people.
Bless. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into that, I think. And I thought of something earlier while you were talking and we were kind of going on the fact that society normalizes and kind of celebrates jealousy and envy and all of these things. And you're more in the loop than I am on current television shows and things of that nature. But I feel like every time I turn the TV on, which for the record is rare. But when I
think
do,
it's funny. I think it's funny that you think I'm up to date in that, but keep
we,
going.
more so than me. Like you've actually seen The Bachelor, right?
Okay, fair. But it has been on it has been on for 20 years, okay?
I set the bar low here. Like TV is not my forte. But I do, what's interesting to me and sticks out to me, the shows that appear to be most popular have the most instances of jealousy, envy, comparison, competition. It's that drama and that inherent chaos factor that is what we seem to gravitate towards as humans.
Right, because it's that I want to be like you, but better. It's that competition. It's I want to compare to
I don't
you.
want to be better than anyone else. And it's competition me against me of yesterday and just trying to do a little bit better than I did.
Yep. I'm down. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the time to compete with other people. I don't have the emotional capacity to compete with other people. I am here as just a person trying to bring light and good and kindness back to the world.
Yeah, I just have no interest. I honestly, I feel like my plate is so full with so many different things. I don't have any interest. And it's like, I cannot be bothered with your bullshit. Next.
Next. I love it. I think we'll leave off on this because it has brought me the most joy this week. One of the most trending audios or reels or like items on social media right now is this whole drink water and mind my business little snip. And the videos people are putting out of like drinking water and minding my own business are hilarious. And I'm just sitting here like in my chair clapping, like, yes, more of this. Let's drink water. Let's hydrate ourselves. Let's mind our own business. And let's not be so mean and mean spirited to one another. And hopefully that will pull the jealousy and the envy and the comparison a little bit out of the mix, at least for a little
Maybe
while.
we just need water. Maybe we need less alcohol, more water.
Well, that's true. There's not a maybe there. That one is true.
And then that will solve all of our problems.
Well, I would like to agree with that. It's a good start. It's a good start to solving the world problems. Drink some water and be nicer.
Yes. I mean, we can start there. That's cool.
To ourselves and others, right? Because we can't, like, that self-love piece of it is important too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with
Well,
you.
my friend, it has been very fun chatting with you today about all things envy, jealousy, comparison, and just our Phoenix story of just rising together and becoming better people.
Yep, we made it. I'm pretty proud of us.
I'm pretty proud of us too.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks guys for tuning in to this very informal episode of What the Fox podcast. And we look forward to hearing from you, hopefully through email.
Absolutely.
We are taking guest speaker requests, or if there's anyone that would like to share their story. We love to have people on and just have them talk about where they shifted in their life and decided to break their own barriers or their family culture barriers. I love hearing those stories.
Absolutely.
So you can email us at whatthefoxtales, TALES @gmail.com. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Bye, y'all.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.